Hello everyone and welcome back to another session of Elden Ring PvP and another weapon showcase. Today we're taking a look at the Godskin Peeler. This is a weapon that is dropped by the Godskin Apostle at the Windmill Village on Altus Plateau. I'll have an image on screen showing the location of the village. This weapon is a fun one to use. I really enjoyed it. I like its unique moveset, and there are a number of good things going on with this weapon. There are two main ways that you see people using the weapon as well, and I'll get into the details on that in a minute here. Getting started with the basics. The weapon requires 17 strength and 22 dexterity to wield, and it weighs 8 units. It has Black Flame Tornado for its skill by default, and at plus 25 on a Keen upgrade path, it has a physical base damage of 255, an E scaling in strength, and an A scaling in dexterity. That said, I did mention that there are two very common ways that you see this weapon used, and the Keen upgrade path I would assume is honestly the least common, or less common rather, of the two. The more common way you see this weapon in use is on the Bleed upgrade path. The reason for that is that on the Bleed upgrade path, you have a physical base damage of 249, so you're not really losing out on anything as far as base damage is concerned. On top of that, you have an E scaling in strength, a B scaling in dexterity, which is still quite good, and a D scaling in arcane. But of course, the benefit to the Bleed upgrade path is the bleed damage, and with this weapon, it has a base bleed damage of 100. That said, the more arcane you have, the more bleed damage you will deal, so needless to say, this weapon will bleed people extremely fast. That said, let's move into the pros of the weapon. It has all of the standard Twin Blade pros, so that would include things like having good fast attacks, a quick move set, multi-hit attacks that can really stack up damage very well, and of course, the running one-handed R1 is a running thrust, so it's good at chasing people down. This weapon is a little bit unique in a way because it does have unique R2 attacks and unique running R2s. They are thrusting attacks, so they are good for roll catching and chasing people down as well, and they're of course good for trading hits because it will work with the Spear Talisman. On top of that though, the running two-handed R2 does do a little swipe and then stab, so that is another good thing about it. It will have the opportunity to do multiple hits, and each one can do decent damage on their own. When you hit with both, it will deal considerable damage, of course. Then, of course, on top of that, if you did go the bleed route on this weapon, you have all of the benefits that I just mentioned, and on top of that, you have all the bleed that you'll be dealing, and with those multi-hit attacks, you have the benefit of building up bleed extremely fast, because 100 bleed per hit as a base is quite high, and with multi-hit attacks, well, it builds up very, very quickly, to say the least. Now, that said, the other thing worth mentioning is that with this weapon, when power stanced, well, we've all seen people doing it. We've all seen people using that jumping attack that they do with this weapon, with Twin Blades in general when power stanced. The thing about that attack in particular is that if you do land the attack, it actually hits your opponent 4 times. Meaning that just at a base, if you power stanced 2 of this weapon, you'll be dealing 400 bleed buildup with that single attack. Yes, it's 4 hits, and yeah, 400 bleed in a single attack is a lot. And that's at the base arcane. Keep in mind, if you upgraded your arcane at all, you'll deal even more, so you're going to be instantly bleeding people out. Clearly, I chose not to do that because I personally find that to be a relatively boring way to play. It's not something I'm really interested in, but I will acknowledge that it is quite powerful and, well, it just is what it is. You guys do what you want to do. That's just my 2 cents on the matter. As far as skills on the weapon, though, I personally like to use Sword Dance and Impaling Thrust. The forward momentum on them I feel like is quite beneficial. Impaling Thrust is nice because it will go through an opponent's shield, and on top of that, it will have the ability to work with the Spear Talisman. Sword Dance is a multi-hit, so it will deal a bit more damage, so it's a trade-off. It comes down to personal preference. I like both options for similar reasons, but slightly different reasons, you know? That said, what Ashes of War, I was going to say weapon arts, what Ashes of War do you guys like to use on your Twin Blades? Let me know in the comments. Now, as far as cons of the weapon, there are a couple of them. The big con of this weapon in particular is the same as all of the other twin blades, and that is that multi-hit attacks are easily parried. It's true, it is what it is, it's just something you kind of have to accept when you are using a twin blade. You do have to play somewhat carefully with it in order to avoid that, and this one does have the benefit of its R2 attacks not being a multi-hit unless you fully charge the two-handed R2. Otherwise, they're just a regular thrust, and at that point, it's not quite as easy to get the parry on it because you can't just tank the first hit and hit the parry. It is what it is. Either way, this is the last fight in the video. I hope you guys have enjoyed this one. I hope you've found it helpful in one way or another. Do you guys use this weapon on the bleed or the keen upgrade path if you do use this weapon? Let me know. What weapon, I almost did it again, what Ashes of War, not weapon arts, Ashes of War, do you like to use on your twin blades? Let me know. If you found the video helpful in one way or another, then do all the YouTube things for me. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I will see you all next time.